Okay. Hello, I hope you all can hear me. So, as you know, Unit 6 is going to have to be over February break because you're like 3 units behind for where the rest of all the AP kids in this nation are. So, with that being said, I have made several assignments for you to do over break, and I am going to now briefly give you an overview of Unit 6, and then I'll make a couple more videos to kind of explain what specific stuff is and what I'm asking you to do for your assignments, which will be in Google Classroom. And if I don't see you tomorrow on Thursday, then I won't be able to tell you about them. So that's why I'm doing this. Okay, so Unit 6, which you should also be taking notes, is the Guild. It's called the Gilded Age. So it is the time period from the end of the Civil War up until about 1899. Okay? Hope you all can hear me, or else this is going to be a huge waste of time. So, the Gilded Age. What do we get during the Gilded Age? We get, alright, I'm going to try and write big so you can see. Okay? We get, excuse me. You get technological change, all right? That is typewriters, telegrams, railroads. We even see the very first automobiles. We see telephones, we see electricity, okay? So, electricity, telephones, typewriters, all right? During this time period, this is where we also see the rise of industrial capitalism. Industrial obviously refers to things like factories. And I think you all understand what industrial means, okay? It's not like a rural society, okay? Capitalism, all right, it is a little more complicated to explain. Capitalism, which is we live in a capitalistic society. We don't live in a society like, say, a communist society. I think you all know the difference between it. Capitalist society, free market, government doesn't interfere, things like that. You get the gist. Okay? So, with this rise in industrial capitalism, we also see the rise in urbanism, okay? And this is where we see robber barons, all right? These are where we get like the first billionaires, okay? These are the guys who control banking, railroads, oil, factories, all this stuff. Rockefeller, okay? Carnegie, Vanderbilt, not Vanderlyn, that's from Red Dead Redemption. You get the gist of what I'm saying, right? And some of these guys, okay, are like evil through and through. All they do is, they make people's lives miserable. But then you've got other people who maybe they're also, still crappy, but at the same time they're trying to improve their image. This is why you see Rockefeller Center. You're going to see Carnegie Libraries, all right? You're going to see all these public works being produced by these ultra-wealthy men in order to improve their image. Those guys are called robber barons. Okay. We also see, we're going to call it the air quotes New South. The new so-called New South is so after the Civil War, all right, we discussed it last class, how there were these so-called black codes, right? And that essentially the South had transformed into slavery just under a different name, okay? So this is where we start to see segregation, Jim Crow laws, all of this new stuff, and Plessy v. Ferguson. That's a Supreme Court case which you're going to be learning about. Very important. Plessy v. Ferguson, which would not be overturned until Brown v. Board of Education in the 60s, essentially said that African Americans were not entitled to equal rights, and really messed up stuff. I mean, the Supreme Court has a history sometimes of not doing the right thing. And this is one of those instances, just like the Dred Scott case that we looked at. Next up, so we got the New South, industrial capitalism, technological change, westward expansion. That continues and it only picks up, okay? So, westward expansion, all right? This is where you get the famous Colonel Custard, right? Actually, a fascinating figure, and a genuinely fascinating historical figure. He's the one, you probably heard of him, Battle of Little Bighorn. He rides out, he attacks a gargantuan force of Native Americans, like 10,000 of them. He has a couple hundred troopers at best. His detachment gets absolutely slaughtered. And it's on July 4th when the news on the centennial, the 100-year anniversary of the nation being founded, that the news hits D.C. It's this huge shock, and this really leads into reprisals, more and more military forces to the west to drive the natives onto the reservations. This is where we see the closing of the frontier. Okay, so it's the end of the day of cowboys, all right? I mean, weird call out, but if any of you have played that video game, Red Dead Redemption 2, I actually haven't. But I do know that there's this whole theme, like it's the end of the days of the cowboys, the end of the days of the outlaws. This is that time, okay? You've got the railroads cropping up, air quotes, civilization moving westward. You get cities, all right? And very importantly, you get barbed wire. Okay, barbed wire is this new invention that all of the ranchers are doing. So they are literally closing the frontier. Native Americans, cattle, bison, people can no longer roam free on the Great Plains. All right, they are literally, and both figuratively and literally, boxed in now. Okay, anything else here? Closing on the frontier. Native Americans really being put onto reservations during this time. This is like that final big push by the U.S. military and government to firmly put Native Americans onto reservations, which are not nice places by and large. Even today, they're some of the poorest places you'll come across. They've really not been dealt a good hand by the U.S. government. I think that's it. Westward expansion. I'm going to put at least closing of the west, closing of the frontier, I should say. And then we're going to put, Native American wars. So we do a lot of fighting against Native Americans. The U.S. cavalry is used to, almost fell over there, basically decimate the native tribes. I think that's everything. Man, I gotta stop kneeling on the ground. That hurts my knees. Okay, so key points to remember about Unit 6. All right, the Gilded Age is what it's called. About the end of the Civil War to 1899, essentially. Okay, we get technological change, electricity, all right? We get the earliest cars, trains, typewriters, all right? Factories, industry, all this stuff. The rise of industrial capitalism, we get the first robber barons. So these are like the billionaires. These are the Elon Musks, the Zuckerbergs, the Bezoses of their day, okay? And the New South. This is the South still trying to keep their old way of life. The Klan is insanely popular, especially in the South. You have segregation, you have Jim Crow laws, you have all this crappy stuff. Then you have the Supreme Court itself saying this is well justified. All right? Finally, for our big overarching topics, we have westward expansion. Okay? So, still going on, and it's getting even faster, right? So the frontier is closing, okay, and Native Americans are really being pushed onto the reservations. So this great big idea of a Wild West is ending, all right? End of the age of the cowboys or something like that. Okay, in case you couldn't read, here's what I've got. Golly, that's some bad handwriting. The Gilded Age, technical change, electricity, telephones, typewriters, etc. industrial capitalism, robber barons, the New South, Plessy v. Ferguson, westward expansion, closing of the frontier, and Native American wars and reservations. So there was your incredibly brief 10-minute overview of Unit 6. Have a wonderful break.